This is Things Police See, First-Hand Accounts, with your host, Steve Gold.
Welcome to the podcast that interviews active and retired police officers about the most intense, bizarre, and sometimes humorous moments on the job. It is I, Old Gingerface, here with you as always, guys. Great to be here. It is the Christmas season. I hope everything's going well for you. I hope you have all your shopping done. I'm in my 40s and just now able to get shopping done, not on Christmas Eve. So we're looking pretty good over here. We went out today and did some touch-up stuff for the kids, and still stores are packed. I don't know, people spending money like crazy. It's absolutely nuts how much money. You got to be careful buying presents for your kids, because it's like every year we're super strict and we're like, we're going to get them these things, this and that thing. And then you can just so easily get carried away and spend it all. But I guess that's, 'tis the season for that kind of stuff. So I hope you guys are doing well. I hope your shopping's all done. Merry Christmas to you. This will be coming out Christmas week. So hope you're with your family and loved ones and friends and having a good time. Today's guest is a great one. Really, really happy to have found him. Got recommended to me by, shout out to Ethan, Deputy Ethan. He's a fan of the show. He's on the job. And he wrote to me and said, you absolutely have to have this guy on. He's fantastic. You're going to love him. And I said, please give me his email. I'd love to have him on. So he did. He started his career in 1974 at LAPD doing 5 years. He then moved out to Casper, Wyoming, where he did 2.5 years for Casper PD, then moved over to the sheriff for 2.5 years as a sergeant, then back to LAPD and wrapped up his career with another 30 years working for them. He retired a lieutenant 2 there. Without further ado, let me bring on the great Rick Deadman. Rick!
I don't know about so great. My wife might argue with you about that.
Thank you for coming on, man. Yeah, I'm sure she would. She might be the only person, though. Everybody else thinks you're great.
Okay.
So, brother,
Well, I'm glad to be here.
I gotta ask you, when you start at LAPD in the 70s and you go to Casper, does the state of Wyoming just let you lateral right over with your training from California?
Well, they had a lateral thing. They required me to do an abbreviated academy at the Wyoming Law Enforcement Academy. But heck, I long story short, I had decided to leave LA to get to a smaller town to raise my kids. And so at that time, before computers and everything, I just called them, said, you have accepting the application? They said, yeah. So I flew out. They gave me an interview and a poly the same day. And they said, hey, you want a job? We'll hire you right now. And I said, well, I need 30 days. So when I got back out there, then heck, they didn't even send me to the academy for 6 months, I think. I just went to work. So in answer to your question, basically they took my background and said, okay, you're good to go. Showed me a few things and said, here's the keys to a car and go to work.
I thought you'd say something like that. Because, I mean, I think historically, the state of California and LAPD especially always has like the top 5 most hours in police academy anyway. So I can't imagine a state not accepting that, you know?
Yeah, well, we had a reciprocal agreement at the time for Post. So California Post had a reciprocal agreement with Wyoming. They had, there's a lot of states they had reciprocal agreements with. I think Nevada too for laterals and that kind of stuff. I'm getting old now, so I don't remember all of them, but it worked out pretty good. So,
was it a culture shock police wise?
Police wise, yeah, because when I became an LAPD officer, and really that's one of the main reasons I went back. It was my home. That badge I wore, that I still have, my daughter wears my lieutenant badge today. She's an LAPD officer, and awesome. That badge to me means a lot. I wore the Casper badge, and not to put Casper down, they're a great police department, everything else. I had some great friends there, had a great time working there. I was able to accomplish some of the things I wanted to accomplish, but I always kind of felt weird because I wasn't wearing the LAPD badge.
Yeah.
So it just didn't mean as much to me.
Yeah, I totally get that. So you go back and do 30 years. That's pretty intense. I mean, if you look back on your career, when your first hot call must have happened at LA when you first started in the 70s. Can you remember your first call that was, got your adrenaline going?
Well, I'm 76 years old now, so remembering back to 1974, but no, the reality is there were so many calls, and I had to think about this because I know before I came on, you gave me a heads up about some of the questions, so I really had to think about it. But I wrote down. I got to look at my notes here really quick, but it's just kind of probably wasn't really a hot call. It was an observation. And when I was a probationary officer working Wilshire Division, it was just south of downtown LA, and I was working a car 7A99, 7 Adam 99 was the car I worked. Well, at that time, they don't like us calling it this today, but at that time we called it the jungle. And it was called the jungle not for a racial reason. Some people always said, it's a racist thing. No, it's not. The jungle was originally built. It was a concentrated area of multi-housing units, apartment buildings, with lots of windy streets, alleys, cul-de-sacs, dead ends, and stuff like that. So a lot of shrubbery around and those kinds of things. So I was working down there. I'll tell you my partner's training officer's first name. His name was Kenny, but he's a legend in LAPD. But we were driving down the street one day, and we see this kid walking from one apartment building across the street to another apartment building. He's carrying a sawed-off shotgun, and he was maybe 30, 40 yards away down the road from us. And so we see him. So Kenny says, "Get that, guy." And so I bail out of the car, and this is before portable radios and all this kind of stuff and everything else. And in those days, we did things a little bit different. I bailed out, and he would go around the block in the black and white, start calling in the troops and everything else. Well, I see this guy. He runs down between two apartment buildings, and back then we only carried a 6-shot 38. So I'm carrying a 6-shot 38, and I come running up to the back of the building, and on the buildings there is a utility room where they have washers and dryers and all that kind of stuff. Well, we were in the jungle, and in those rooms and places like that, people would go and bust all the light bulbs because they want to have a dark spot where they could go if they need to hide or whatever, that kind of thing. This was just before dark. Well, so I go running up to the door, and I see a 12-gauge round laying on the ground. So I'm thinking, okay, so this guy is armed with a loaded 12-gauge shotgun, and I'm thinking to myself, he's in this room, and I've got a 38, and he's got a 12-gauge. So I backed off a little bit. I started yelling at him to come out, and the kid's name was David Hunt, and they called him David the Hunt. And he had just gotten out of camp, CYA, California Youth Authority, for murder. Ooh. And he'd just gotten out and was running amok, and he was running around with a sawed-off 12-gauge. Well, I start trying to call him out, and then I look over to my right, and there was a little concrete ledge with a fence next to this other apartment building. I see the 12-gauge laying there, and I'm thinking, oh, okay, I'm good. He doesn't have the 12-gauge. Well, what he had done is he tried to shoot me with a 12-gauge, and it's a long story. He didn't know how to use it, and the stock was cut off, and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I get him out, get him to come out, and I've got him proned out. And I'm watching him, and I could hear the troops coming, sirens. My partner's running around the block in the black and white. Nobody knows where I am. The helicopter shows up, and back then it was a little whirlybird type helicopter, like the old TV show Whirlybirds. It wasn't a Bell Ranger yet. And
right.
So they're trying to find me. And so I get this guy proned out, and I figure, okay, I'm going to try to handcuff him. Well, when I try to handcuff him, he decides he's going to get up. So I stood on him and basically stood on him and held him down. I was able to get him handcuffed, and I was able to start walking him out, and the air unit spotted me, and then the cops, the other coppers got there and helped me get him back out the car. But probably the funniest thing about the whole thing was I get him into the back seat of the black and white. And in those days, we always rode in the black and white with the suspect. We didn't have a screen, no screens or anything like that between the front seat and the back seat. So the passenger officer who had the arrestee would sit behind the driving officer, and we put the suspect on the passenger side of the back seat. So I get him into the back seat, and he's going nuts, MFing me and my partner and everybody else. We're all bad guys and everything. So I walked around to the driver's side, opened the door to get in, and he spins around on the seat, and he kicks me in the chest. Ugh. Now, keep in mind, this kid's handcuffed. So I'm thinking, Well, you don't want to do that. So needless to say, I jumped in on top of him, and he fell off the seat on his back on the floorboard, and I was just going to choke him out from the front. And so I figured I was going to choke him out. And the next thing I know, I hear somebody yelling at me, Deadman, Deadman. And somebody grabs the collar of my shirt. He pulls me out of the black and white. And it's the sergeant. I'm going, uh-oh. I'm in big trouble.
What'd I do?
Yeah, I'm on probation. I'm a probationary officer. And so he tells me, he says, see that car, that black and white over there, right there? I said, yeah. He said, that's mine. You drive it to the station. I'm going to ride in the back seat with this guy to the station. Now, this kid's a black kid. And to me, I'm not a racial kind of guy. I wasn't raised that way. Never, I didn't care if he was black or white. I didn't care. And the sergeant was black. And so I drive back to the station. We get to the station. Sergeant gets out of the car and he walks over to me. He says, hey, between you and me, don't do that again. I said, okay, Sarge, whatever you say. So we take the guy to jail, and he went to jail. But that's the only, that was one kind of funny story I could think of, or something that was interesting. But, so many, working in a place where I did, everybody knows this, that it works a large metropolitan area. They're all the same. It's busy. So you get a lot of things that happen. So anyway.
Yeah. When you're a young copper though, and you get the collar on the guy and you walk him out, you must have felt great. You must have been like, this is the chopper flying overhead. You got him handcuffed. Bam. This is good.
Well, I could tell you another one. It was great because Kenny and I worked together a lot. And like I said, he's a legend on LAPD himself. He ended up going to SWAT for many years. And but he and I were driving down the street one day, same thing, working the jungle car, PM watch, night watch. And we see a guy go by us on Washington Boulevard doing about 80 miles an hour, and right behind him is a Metro car. Well, Metro and LAPD, they drive plain cars back in those days, and we were driving Matadors, and they had a magnetic sign that would go on the side door of the car. We saw the Metro car go flying by, and we go, oh, they got something going on. They're on a different frequency, so we didn't know what was going on. So we get in behind them and start going code 3. As soon as we turn on the lights and the buzzer, the siren, they pull a curb. There's like, they waved us on way to go after these guys. Long story, endless. We chase these guys a little way. They turn down an alley, heading down into the jungle, hit a T intersection, lock up the brakes on the car. Oh, before that, I forgot to tell you this. The guy in the left side rear seat is leaning out the window shooting at us with a 38.
Oh,
while we're chasing.
a little detail there.
Yeah, while we're chasing him down the street, I'm thinking, and Kenny goes, we got to get this son of a bitch. And I said, well, yeah, I know. And so I unlocked the shotgun. I had a shotgun out because before he crashed, I figured we were going to get close enough. I was to start shooting double-aught buck at him,
Yeah,
because he was shooting at us out of the car. But we got those guys. They bail out of the car, 3 guns go flying in the sky, and we captured them all eventually. But
wow, damn, was he hitting the car?
They didn't hit the car that time. But that's just kind of typical stuff we did on a daily basis, every division in the city, all over the place. So
yeah, I remember
it was fun
hearing stories like that. Some guys I couldn't, from LAPD when I was at backgrounds as a civilian background investigator, I hear stories like that and I couldn't get them to come on. And I don't know if they even knew what a podcast was, but I was like, you got to come on and tell this story. And they're like, I don't know. It's the only story I have. I don't have any other stories. I'm like, I know you have so many more, because all these guys had done 30 years, but they just, a lot of guys will say that. They'll be like, 30-year coppers in a major metro area. And they're like, I'm not sure I have stories for you. I'm like, bud, you have stories. You have so many that you've like clogged your brain.
Yeah. Well, I've forgotten most things that happened in my career. And my daughter's still on the job in LA. So, and she's a lieutenant. My son-in-law's a sergeant there. So every now and then she'll call me and say, hey, Dad, you remember a guy named so-and-so? Yeah, kind of. Well, he told me that you did blah, 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 blah. I said, I don't know what you're talking about. And these guys remember stuff that I would completely forget about. So
that's awesome.
But yeah,
that's so cool. Especially cool. Your daughter works here and she gets to hear the mythical stories of Rick Deadman floating around the station still.
Well, see, she still wears the same name tag, the last name Deadman. Married name's Jimenez now, but because she wasn't married she got 20 years on the job now. So for a long time she was known as Deadman. So working for the department sometimes at the level she's at, it makes sense just to keep the Deadman name tag, but her married name now is Jimenez. So, but yeah, people see the name tag, got a gazillion stories about that. But hey, you related to Rick Deadman anyway? Are you his wife or whatever? Because she's no, I'm his daughter.
So what are you doing now that she has your badge? If she retires with your badge, do you get it back and they give her a retirement badge, or did they give you a retirement badge and you gave her your badge?
Well, early on when she came on the academy, the department kind of changed policy a little bit. You couldn't hand down your badges, and I went to the chief. I knew the chief of police at the time, the job I had, and got approved from the chief of police. Well, yeah, you can give her your police officer badge. So over her career, she wore my police officer badge, she wore my sergeant's badge, and she's wearing my lieutenant's badge now. So she has all three of them technically. So when she retires, she will get all three.
And
the only badge I have, well, go ahead.
I was saying, what do you have in your wallet, or do you have a retirement badge?
I have a flat badge that LAPD finally approved many years ago. So it's a lieutenant badge with my badge number on it, but she has the real badge with the badge number on it.
Okay, yeah, I remember talking to my buddy Ken at Backgrounds, and he, because in Northeast they'll just issue, when you get hired, they'll issue you like 2 or 3 badges, one for your, because out here we have all these different coats, raincoat, winter coat,
right,
and then like your shirt. But then like in California, it was kind of, my buddy Ken was like, yeah, you got a badge, like you got a badge,
right.
And then like when he retired, they like welded retired onto it, like, and it was the same badge. I thought that was so cool. You just get one. And then when you retire, they alter it so you can still have it. So
well, they changed the policy because LAPD's policy was so tight with the LAPD badge, because after Dragnet and all that stuff, Adam 12,
everybody wants it.
People wanted them. They were collector's editions because they were so hard to get. And there was a copyright on the LAPD badge, so nobody could make a badge like it until the copyright went out, expired, and so then a lot of departments started making badges similar. But then that's when the department said, you know what? Yeah. It means a lot to these people that if they can hand the badges down or hang on to them. So they changed the policy a little bit.
You can tell when the copyright went up because like every department in the Southwest has an LAPD badge.
Well, it's a unique badge. It always was, but there's some great badges out there. Some great police departments have some great badges. There's some great star badges out there that I think are really cool.
Yeah, the star is cool. I love how Chicago has a star, but they're a city.
Yeah,
I think that's so cool. I love the star.
I love the U.S. Marshal badge. I think the U.S. Marshal badge is pretty cool.
Very cool.
For me, the LAPD badge is me. It's what I am.
Yeah, there's a story floating around out here on Cape Cod where I used to work. One of the towns got Massachusetts has its own badge. It kind of has some. It's got they call it the scallop badge. It has kind of like a starburst on the side, and it was made for Massachusetts. So most municipalities have it. Some states like New Hampshire and Maine kind of grabbed it and used it too, just so they didn't have to design their own badge, I think. But it's a mass badge. So most places have that. But this one guy in a town on the Cape got a replica of the LAPD badge, like a big sun badge. And in town, they had like a clock tower that kind of looked like City Hall. So he put that on there. I mean, it looked just like it. So he went to a big chiefs of police meeting up in Boston, and there was an LAPD retired chief there, and they just relentlessly busted his balls. They're like, "Hey, come over here, take your wallet out, show him your badge, The LAPD chief had a good chuckle. You see this little town on the East Coast has the LAPD badge,
Yeah.
So funny. It is legendary though. It's so cool.
Yeah, but we could thank Jack Webb for that. He created that. He really made that happen. Yep.
Gotcha. Yeah. Rick, can you tell us the strangest or most bizarre thing you've dealt with in your police career?
Well, this isn't a pretty one. And I thought about this a lot. There's been a bunch of them. A couple more just came to mind, even different than this one. I was, actually I was a sergeant working in Wyoming at the time. And, it was night watch. It was early winter, maybe. Heard a fire call come out about 30 miles outside of town. And that was our jurisdiction in the county. So I was going to roll out there anyway. And it turned out they called out the fire department. Well, the fire department had to respond from Casper out to where this fire was in this restaurant or whatever it was. It turned out it was a burglary. Then they set the place on fire. But
That's a long way to drive fire equipment.
Yeah. So anyway, they're heading out that way from town, and on the outskirts of town, going west out of town, there's one stoplight there, and it was a 4-lane divided road. And so all of a sudden I hear firemen yelling, "I need help. I've been involved in a traffic accident, blah, blah, blah," and all this kind of stuff. So I'm the first guy that rolls up on the traffic accident. What he was driving was like a large 4-wheel drive tanker fire truck, which was very lifted, very high. I probably had, I don't know if it had 3,000 gallons on it or not, maybe a little bit less, but so it's full of water, and he's heading out that way, and he's by himself. And so he's in the borrow ditch in the median between the lanes of traffic, and I could see the skid marks and stuff coming up the intersection, all that kind of stuff. So I said, "What'd you hit?" I said, "What happened? How'd you end up in here?" He goes, "Well, the other car. I said, "What do you mean the other car?" He says, "The other car." I said, "I'm looking around. I don't see the other car." And he says, "It's under the front of the truck." And so I walk around the front of the truck, and it was a Ford, I think it was a Fiesta, they called them, a little Ford Fiesta. It was small. Yep. And this is like keep in mind, this is in the early 80s. So I can barely see this car up underneath this thing. Keep in mind, this is a tall rig, big, tall, with a big bumper, huge winch on the front end of it and all that kind of stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, there's somebody in this car. And I said, "What happened?" He said, "Well, I was coming over the hill. There's a little crest of a hill." So he had his siren on, red lights on, everything else. Well, if you're somebody in a car, you got your radio on, you're not paying attention, and the light turns green, you pull out. That's exactly what happened. Is his car pulled out off this side street when they got the green, and he center punched him. And I looked inside, and I could see a brain, an intact brain laying on the floorboard of this car.
Whoa.
And I was a deputy coroner at the time too, and I'd been trained, and I thought, man, this is really weird. And I could see teeth in braces laying on the floor.
Oh.
And I thought, oh no, 16-year-old kid got killed. And, he had a green light, pulled out, and got T-boned. So that was just one of the weirdest things. You see weird things as a police officer, and yeah, it was ugly. It was an ugly thing.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
That was kind of creepiest, weirdest thing I ever saw, I think.
Yeah, that's it. Seeing the human body in like super unnatural ways it really gets into you. It's really disturbing to see, especially when you're first on the job and you see it, and it just kind of like makes the hair stand up on your neck. It's just,
yeah. And by then I already had 6, 7, 8 years on. So I'd seen things like that before, and I had been a coroner there. I was a coroner there for a little over 2.5 years too. And they called me the shit magnet because I used to get all the bad calls, so, but this was, thankfully I wasn't the coroner on this one, so I didn't have to handle it. But yeah, it was distressing and depressing because this poor 15, 16-year-old kid just got killed, and he was just coming from his parents' house, so just a bad thing.
Yeah, I'm sure that tore the firefighter up too. Yeah,
I don't know that he ever worked again. I know he had a really hard time with it. Yeah, and I can't remember if he was a volunteer full time. He might have been full time there, but yeah, it was a sad thing for him to go through.
How large was the Casper PD when you were there?
When I got there, there was 84 cops, something like that.
Okay.
And then the sheriff's department wasn't quite that big. I can't remember, maybe in the 50s. But the town was large at the time. It's a lot larger now because it was during the boom. So it was during the oil boom, coal boom. There was a lot going on there. It was a boom town. And then the slump hit, and I left about the time the slump hit, and then they cut back on oil wells and coal mining for a lot of reasons. So it got pretty bad there for a while.
It looks beautiful out there. Like I was telling you before the interview, we spoke last week, the friends of our family, their family moved out there, and we see the pictures and the snow-capped mountains, and so it looks so beautiful.
Yeah, well, Casper's, and don't get me wrong, and this is kind of the joke for people in the know. The wind never blows in Casper. It just never blows in Casper. But in the wintertime, my dad was stationed there during World War II, and because there was a training, he was in the Army Air Corps, so there was a air base out there during World War II. And he said, yeah, if you go there, just know that when it snows horizontal. It goes horizontal. It doesn't go straight down. It goes horizontal. But you know what? My daughter was born there, had a great time there, had a good life there, still have friends that live there. I've been back a couple times since I left over the years, and still have, heck, one of the guys I worked Casper PD with, he's I believe a state senator down in Wyoming. So, it's a great place to live, if you don't mind cold weather and stuff like that. So.
Yeah. It seems like a great place to have a family. Like the pictures I see from my friends out there, they're like their kids are helping on cattle ranches and kind of just doing, just good old fashioned hard work, seeing how the sausage is made type of thing,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Very
great
cool.
place. Great. But that's why I moved there originally. I ended up going back to LA and biting the bullet, and I'm glad I did, but now I'm able to live where I live. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Rick, can you tell us about the most intense or terrifying call you went on?
I have to tell you, I thought long and hard about this, because I was never got terrified. I never got really scared. Maybe later after something was over with, you start thinking about it and you think, hell man, I could have got my ass killed. Or I could have, or I've been in situations where after it's over with, it's cold outside, adrenaline is going, you get in your car, turn on the heater, and you get an adrenaline up and you start shaking like a leaf. You can't stop shaking. That happened to me a few times over the years, but I can honestly say I never got really afraid. I got, I've got a couple of them that came up, but I'll tell you about this one. It was Thanksgiving. I was a sergeant at the time in the Hollywood Division. I'm not going to say any names, but it was a quiet night, very quiet night. So we were doing our thing, had a lot of fun, had a big spread there. People brought a bunch of food, and coppers were out working the field and all that kind of stuff. And I heard one of our best training officers, come on the radio and requested an ambulance. He said, yeah, we need an RA, 6 Adam, whatever he was, and we need an RA at blah, 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 blah. Well, where he was at was down the street I think it was off of Sunset. There's studios all around there, of course. And he was requesting an ambulance, LA Fire Department ambulance. And I something hit me, and I knew it wasn't good. And I told the officer that was sitting in there with me, she was taking calls to complete reports. And I told her, I said, they just shot somebody. The lieutenant, who was a really good friend of mine, was over at his girlfriend's house having Thanksgiving dinner. And he had a radio with him and everything else. And I said, as soon as the lieutenant calls in, you tell him that I'm going. I'll be there when he gets there. But I believe they just shot somebody. So I grabbed a set of keys, jumped in a black and white, went running down there. Well, I get there, and this is when I started getting worried. I get there, this P3, we call him P3s, this two-striper training officer. He's standing there, very good guy, know him very well, had a great career. Anyway, he standing there, he's holding a gun in his hand. His eyes are about as big as 2 pie pans. And he walks up to me and says, Sarge, what do I do? I said, what do you mean, what do you do? And then I hear something, and I look over to the side, and I can see the other P3, and he's down. And he's been shot. And there's a private company ambulance there treating him. They were just driving by, and this other officer waved him down and said, hey, we need help. And so this first officer that put the call out, he says, yeah, we were doing some training, and I'm not going to say his name, and I look over and I see this one probationer standing over there, and he's white as a sheet. And what had happened was since it was slow that night, they're 2 good P3s, 2 good training officers. They each had a probationer. They were doing some training in the parking lot over there at the studio. So what they had done is they had unloaded all their weapons and made them all safe. And they were doing stuff with, if you're in the back seat with an arrestee, because we were still doing that at the time, we didn't have screens or anything else. And an arrestee pulls a gun, or you miss a gun, or he tries to disarm you, how are you going to handle it? So they went through that scenario. Well, they got done with the scenario and the training, and then they reloaded their weapons, holstered up again, and everything else. And then the officer that was shot, eventually, he says, "You know what? I want to talk about something else. I want to show you guys one other thing." So they make safe again. They get in the car. Now the officer that got shot is sitting over on the suspect's side. The probationary officer is sitting on the driver's side in the back seat. He commences to do a gun takeaway. I can't remember exactly what he was doing. But so the probationary officer pulled out his backup gun that was still loaded.
Ooh.
And he shot his training officer.
Oh.
And so when I got there, the officer that was shot was bad, very bad. So I told that first training officer, he tried to give me the gun. I said, "No, you hang on to that gun, because when robbery homicide gets here, when the shooting team gets here, and when everybody else gets here, continuity evidence, they're going to want the whole story. They're going to want the gun from you." And so I went over, and the officer that was wounded, I told him, "I'm here for you." About that time, the RA unit showed up, the LAC fire, we call them RA units, rescue ambulance. It shows up. So those guys start treating him. And I went over to this young probation officer that had shot him. And I told him, I said, "Listen," I won't say his name. I said, "Listen, he's going to be okay. He's not going to die. You're not going to lose your job. It's all good. And you're a Los Angeles police officer. I'm not going to take your gun away from you." Because he still had his service weapon on him.
Right.
He said, "I'm not going to take your gun away from you or anything else." I didn't want to disarm him because he was in full uniform, badge and everything else. And I was afraid that it would even make it worse for him if I did disarm him. So I told him, I said, "You're going to keep your gun, everything else, but don't do anything stupid. I don't want you doing anything, hurting yourself or anything else." He says, "Sergeant, I'm good, Sergeant. I'm good, Sergeant. I just want you to be okay." Well, I went back over to the primary training officer who still had his backup gun. I told him, "Dude, you watch him like a frigging hawk. If he does anything off the wall, you grab him, you take his gun away from him. If you have to, you put handcuffs on him. I don't want him doing anything bad." So I said, "I'm going to the hospital." And that's when the RA unit had loaded up this other officer, and they had the head of the hospital. Now, this was a long, drawn-out situation, because after this whole thing happened, this officer that got shot, he and I had a really close relationship after this, because I stayed with him in the ER the whole time, holding his hand, talking to him. We thought he was going to die from the injuries. And anyway, they took him down to the operating room, and the nurse came running out of the operating room. She said, "The surgeon needs you in there because he needs you until we get him put out." So I wasn't even scrubbed up or anything. They took me right in the OR when the doctor's in there, and they're getting ready to go. But long story short, it terrified me later, just because of everything that happened to all these involved officers. Now, it affected these guys the rest of their careers, the rest of their lives. It affected me.
Yeah.
And I didn't think, I'll tell you this too. I didn't think I had PTSD. I thought I did good. I mean, I saw a lot of nasty things over the years and on a large police department. And my wife told me, she said, "We need to watch Bosch. We got to watch Bosch." Now, Bosch is a great TV show, but they filmed it at Hollywood Station, where I worked there as a sergeant. I worked there as a policeman. I worked there a long time. And so they used the actual station for a while, and then they built a set. It was exact duplicate of Hollywood Station. Well, finally I agreed to her. I said, "Okay, let's watch one show." Well, the show we decided to watch on Bosch was when, what were they called? The two homicide detectives he used to supervise. What were they? I can't remember their nicknames on the show, but one of them was a tall, skinny guy, and the other one was a short, stocky guy. Well, during that episode, this tall guy had his gun taken away from him. He was shot by a suspect, and he was in the hospital room, still in really bad shape. And Bosch walked in, and as soon as I saw that scene, I started crying because I was thinking about myself in the hospital with the officer who had worked for me. And I broke down, and I told my wife, I can't watch this anymore. And the thing that really hit me was the actor in that show told Bosch, "You get that son of a bitch, you get my gun back." And I'm thinking to myself, man, I just remember when I was there I almost said her name again, but with this officer, and he ended up having a long, great career and everything else. He got through it. Everybody came out okay on the end, but that was probably terrifying for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Training things like that happen. I remember where at one point in my career, I got certified as a simunitions instructor. You know, you shoot the little pellets at each other.
We started at LAPD. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure you guys start everything. Well, the instructor told us, he said, you know, they're super strict about the loaded weapons thing. They don't want pocket knives, magazines, pepper spray, tasers. You can have nothing but the simunitions gun. You get checked twice during the scenarios. It's very, very strict. And the instructor was training us to be instructors, told us a story about New York PD where they shut down a city block to do simunitions training. And it was strict, but at one point, the guys were really liking it. And they had officers posted for security while they trained. And he said to the guy in the post, you really got to try this. It's really fun. So they talked, and then he hopped in. They never switched guns. They talked about it, but they never actually switched guns. So he went in to the group, got in there. They didn't do a re-safety check, and he shot a role player like right in the chest. And it was like, you know, these things, it happens. Things happen like that. But that's why like with training now, because these things have happened, they really are over the top with the safety stuff. Sometimes it feels like, oh my gosh, all right, we get it. None of us are armed, but it's because things like this happen when you're training. It just, they always do, you know?
Right.
And they always say firearms instructors too, firearms instructors are always the ones that end up shooting themselves in an accident because they're always around guns all the time. They become complacent.
Well, I was the assistant officer in charge and then the officer in charge of the tactics training at the Los Angeles Police Academy for a while. And my partner, Frank Micah, he was the OIC before he retired, and then I took over. But we worked there for a long time, so we were very cognizant of that stuff because we started using simunition up there at the police academy. We got approval to do that, so it's a big deal. You know, thankfully, we didn't have anybody during our tenure get shot, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Rick, before I move on to the positive story, do you have any other intense stories that kind of stick out in your mind from your career that you'd want to share?
Oh gosh, there's so many. There's golly. I will tell you, like I just mentioned, I worked the tactics training unit there for a long time. I taught deadly force up there. I taught officer survival. I taught, tactics, everything, all that stuff. That's what interestingly enough, that's what my daughter does now is at the academy. But Frank and I mentioned Frank Micah. I mentioned his name. He's gone now. Man, I don't want to get emotional, but sorry. He taught me everything I know. He's a legend on LAPD. Anyway, Frank and I were working the tactics unit, and we had this young probationer. I remember when he went through the academy, he's a really good kid, hard worker, squared away. He was a tall kid, and he was an Asian kid, and he just had a really good attitude. So anyway, he's out working patrol, and he and his partner stopped some, what do they call it? I'm trying to remember now. I'm having a senior moment here. The back then they weren't called cartel, Sinaloan cowboys. They were Sinaloan cowboys.
I've
Anyway,
heard guys in LA say that before. Yeah.
they were Sinaloan cowboys. They'd have the car pickup truck with the Brahma Bolt sticker on the side. And they were fancy dressers. They like carrying government model 1911s all tricked out, gold and silver.
The ivory handles and all that.
Yeah, ivory handles and all this kind of stuff. So he and his partner stopped these two guys, or a couple guys one night. Well, as this officer gets out of the passenger side of the black and white, his partner's getting out of the driver's side. Passenger, and again, I may get some of the facts about the shooting messed up, but the results are still the same. Passenger suspect gets out of the car, shoots this young officer, hits him in the face with a .45 round, and knocks him down. And knocked him down. He returns fire, and then his partner returns fire. I think his partner may have killed one guy. I can't remember if they wounded the other guy. Oh, I can't remember how many of the suspects got killed or hit, whatever. But anyway, this young officer got hit. He told us he wanted to have a meeting with my Frank and I up there at the academy one day, and he came up there, and so we set him down in our office, just us with him, and he was having a hard time because he wanted to come back to work, but he was stressed because he'd been shot, and shot in the face. He survived it, which is a good thing,
Right.
And so he starts telling us about the shooting in the office, and long story short, again, he said, yeah, when the round hit me, I fell down on my butt on the sidewalk against the front of this business there. And he said the bullet fell into my mouth, and I spit the bullet out. It literally, maybe it was a soft .45 round or something, hit him in the face. So it fell into his mouth. He was able to spit it out. And so he was having a hard time because he told us, he said, every time I go out now, every time I get in a car, I feel like every stop I make, somebody's going to shoot me.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, dude, that's normal, man. What you're going through is normal. You've been shot. You did good. You survived. That's all that matters. Your partner survived. That's all that matters. Nothing else matters. And he ended up coming to see us 2 or 3, at least 2, maybe 3 times. And we kept telling him, you can retire, because the department had offered him retirement. And we told him, and at that time, if he had retired on a service-based pension like that, or a medical-based pension like that, the department would retrain him to do anything he wanted to do. If he wanted a new career, whatever that was, they put him through school.
Wow.
He could have gone to school and everything else to get a new career. And so finally, the second or third time he came up to see us, it was just too much for him, and he decided to pull the pin and retired. And it was a good thing. He ended up moving on and having a good life and everything else. So I personally see that as a very positive thing, because what we tried to do, and what I tried to do, because I was a supervisor for so long, Frank was in the position he was in. We had so much impact on these young officers, trying to teach them, train them, so they'd have a good attitude, be squared away, be survivors. I remember I got yelled at by the captain one time. He says, Deadman, you need to stop yelling at those recruits up there when you're doing the officer survival stuff. And Captain, and to this day, I still have my daughter will tell me, hey, Dad, you remember so-and-so? Yeah, you told me that, he got in the shooting or whatever. He remembers you screaming and yelling at him. And he said, remember that when he got in the shooting, don't give up, don't quit, survive, do all those kinds of things. And
yeah.
So that was the positive part of the job. Yeah. And I still get feedback every now and then from my daughter, thankfully, because she's still there, and other people. And that's a really positive thing for me, because that was what I was trying to accomplish the whole time I was on the job. So,
yeah, absolutely. Wow, that is a crazy story. I cannot imagine spitting a round out of my mouth. I mean,
yeah,
of course that kid's going to be, everybody's built different. But I mean, obviously anybody who gets in the car that the next time is going to be thinking, what's stopping this from happening again right now? If you can't get out of that headspace, then man, that's so supportive too. Like they would help him get a new career, help him get a degree in something else. That's crazy. That's awesome.
I don't know how it is now, but that's the way it was back then. If you could get funding, to be able to do that, so that to get trained a new career or new job or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I've had guests on before, and they talk about, I mean, every state is different, every department is different, but there are places out there that are just like, getting past the medical board in the bad states is like winning the lottery. Like they don't want to help you. They don't want you to go out on a medical, especially for something like a mental health thing, because it's not like a thing you wear on your outside. It's not like you broke your back or you have a limp now or you can't use your trigger finger. It's
right.
It's in your mind, and it can happen to any one of us. It absolutely can. The opportunity is there. But I hear from some people that come on that their states are not supportive of that. And it takes like a huge battle to get any kind of support from the department. And when they finally do, it's like 4 or 5 years down the road after fighting the state's, fighting City Hall, essentially, like, trying to take care of this poor officer who's been traumatized. I hate those stories. So hearing from you that it was like that then, at least, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Rick, can you tell us about a positive or heartwarming situation you had? You're just staring at me like, nope.
No, there's a lot. There's a lot. I was working 77th Division down in Watts, basically. That's 77th Southeast, or down in the south end of Los Angeles. I was assistant watch commander at 77th on PM watch, and very active division, very busy division. And whenever a couple coppers would bring in an arrestee, we had to ask them 5 questions and stuff that, just to make sure that the officer didn't do anything inappropriate, blah, 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 all those kind of things. So a couple officers brought a guy in. They said, "Hey, Sarge, we got an arrestee." And so I asked what's going on. Well, and they said, "Well, he's got a warrant for 187, which is murder in the state of California." He said, "Hey, he's got a murder warrant. This is his name. He's an asshole, blah, 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 gang member and all this kind of stuff. And he's a big, tall kid, good looking kid. And he's motherfucking everybody and, MFing everybody and screaming and yelling. And this, I took care of this. All this bullshit." So I go out to him and he's MFing me and MFing the 2 coppers that brought him in. He says, I took care of this. And so I got up toe to toe with him. I said, "Dude, you need to stop the bullshit. I'm going to ask you some questions." I said, "If you treat me with respect, I will treat you with respect. If you treat these 2 officers with respect, they will teach you with respect. You need to knock off the bullshit." And he looks down at my name tag, and he's standing there in handcuffs, and he looks at me, he goes, "Do you know Ms. Deadman?" I go, "Excuse me?" At the time, my daughter was a civilian green shirt custody assistant at the LA County Jail. She was working LA County Jail in custody, and green shirts were civilian employees that helped deputies. This is before she came on the job on LAPD.
Okay.
And I said, "Why are you asking me that?" He goes, "If you're related to Ms. Deadman, she always treated me with respect." And I said, "Oh, really?" I said, "Well, then if you treat me with respect, I'll treat you with respect, just like these 2 officers will." Well, it turned out, I talked to my daughter later. She starts laughing when I told her this guy's name. She goes, "Dad, he was one of the biggest asshats in the module when I was there. He was trying to always get me to give him shit and give him stuff because he thought she was stupid because she's a custody assistant, And as soon as he kind of realized that I didn't tell him, but he realized that we were related. Then he knocked it off.
Funny.
Well, it turned out he'd already been booked for the warrant before. So they got it squared away. He got released. He'd already taken care of the murder warrant. It was all a done deal. But he stopped being an asshat during that whole situation with the officers. So they were kind of thankful that they didn't have to put up with the bullshit from him anymore.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But that was kind of a heartwarming thing, I thought. I've got a weird sense of humor, so.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's funny. So before I ask you the final question, I want to talk to you about the gig you have going on now. supporting other officers.
Oh, I'm glad you're going to let me pip that off.
Yeah, well, it's fast. It's you gave me a little piece of it when we were just having a conversation about you coming on, and I didn't realize like people did it the way you described it. Like you work overnights and stuff. So let people know, because it's amazing.
Well, and I didn't tell Copline or Stephanie that I was going to do this. Stephanie, the founder, she's a clinical psychologist in New Jersey. And when 9/11 happened, she had so many firefighters and police officers coming to her after 9/11 that she was seeing the stress that they'd been through and trauma and everything else. So back then, she started something called Copline. It's Copline, Copline. You can Google Copline. Anybody that sees this podcast, I would encourage you, if you're a police officer, a police officer's family, member of the family, or you're a retired police officer or a part of the family of a retired police officer. If you are going through something bad, I don't care what it is, if it's PTSD, if it's trauma, if it's alcoholism, if it's drugs, if it's violent behavior or anything like that, please look to Copline, call Copline, because we are all volunteers. We are all retired police officers. We've been trained to be good listeners. And if you are in crisis, if you're thinking about killing yourself, don't call us first, please. And we can give you referrals nationwide, Canada included. I don't care what country you live in. We will help you the best we can find referrals for you to get help if you're in crisis. So I would really encourage you to think about Copline, find out what it's all about, and please, if you get to a bad situation, call us, because 24/7, 7 days a week, we're there for you, because we know what you're going through, because we've been there. So but Copline. I can't say it enough.
That's a beautiful thing.
I would encourage you.
That's amazing.
It's a great thing. And I volunteer. I do Sunday nights. I like doing Sunday nights, the night shift, so I do those. But I would really encourage people to, I could tell you stories about that too. But anyway, I would encourage you to look towards Copline if you're having some problems.
And just for officers out there, a lot of coppers listen to the show. If they would be a good fit to do the work that you're doing, what can you give us a little peek into? Like, obviously, no details or anything, but like, what is it like? Like, you set up your computer and you just kind of like, all right, I have the overnight shift. I'm just going to be around my computer, and if it rings, that's somebody who needs help, and I answer it. Is that how it works?
Well, one of the things I forgot to mention is that everything we do is strictly confidential. So you don't even have to tell us your real name if you don't want to. But and without getting into the technicalities of the system and the Copline, how it works is we are on call telephonically. So if you call the Copline number, there's at least 2 of us on call every shift. You're going to get us. If you get a voicemail, it's because both of us are busy on call. So please leave a voicemail. We'll get back to you. We do it, like I said, everything's confidential. So we don't send out texts ourselves to people on our own phones. We don't send out emails to people from our computers. And we don't really want to know the phone number that you're calling from. We don't want to know your email address unless you openly give it to us, because you want us to have one of our resource people contact you. Because we do have people who work resources. So that let's say you called me one night and you said, "Hey, I'm really having a hard time. I'm thinking about killing myself." After talking to you for some time, I'd figure out, okay, where do you live? Get a general idea where you live. I can get you a referral. Here's the name and number. Well, you know what? I can't find anybody close to you, whatever. I said, I'm going to have somebody call you, but all you need to do is contact them. So we have a resource person that they can contact, or we'll have the resource person call them. But it's strictly confidential. If you call up and say, "Hey, unless you're thinking about killing somebody else or molesting a kid or something like that, if you call up and say, 'Hey, I'm thinking about killing myself,' we're not going to call your department until then. Our job is to help you. So it's just one-on-one. So if you call Copline one night you're going to get one of us on the phone. Is the way it works.
That's awesome. And do they need help? Do they need people like certified people?
We need, if you're interested in being a volunteer for Copline, you can go online, fill out an application, and then Copline will contact you. The biggest issue is that they want a retired police officer who is squared away, who retired in good standing and everything else. And if you want to continue serving and helping your fellow officers, you can volunteer and work with Copline. The biggest issue, probably the biggest drawback, is if you have to go to training, which we do training, they do 40 hours of specific training on how to be a good listener for Copline. Depending on where the training is, you have to fund it yourself. So you have to get the fly there, you have to get the hotel room. So it's an expense that you would have to take on to get the training. But once you're in, you're in.
That's awesome. I mean, cops have big hearts. So I know there's a lot of guys out there, and there's a lot of cops that, it is one of those jobs when you retire, it's like you have such an impactful job that when you retire, you're like, I'll just go work at the hardware store part-time and be happy. But I know a lot of cops that are like, I feel like I was doing something and now I feel like, what am I doing? So this to me seems like if you got the pension and you're doing okay, I mean, it just sounds like an awesome idea for some veteran coppers to get to help you guys out. So I will put the link if it's okay with you, and you can check with your boss, but I'll put the link. Yeah. I'll put the link in the show notes. So any coppers out there listening that might be interested in helping, I'll put the link there. And obviously also any coppers that are listening that are struggling, a guy like Rick or a guy or a woman with police background is going to answer the phone. That's great to know. I can put that link in the show notes as well.
Okay. You know what I'll do is I'll contact Stephanie, let her know what's going on, and then I'll let you know, if it's okay. I'm sure she's going to say it's okay.
Okay. Awesome. Love it. Thank you for sharing that, Rick. Last question, very popular because there's a lot of young coppers or would-be coppers listening. They're in backgrounds or they're thinking about doing it. I even get emails from people that like decided to do it because they heard you guys come on here and tell your stories, and they decide, and then I get like a email with a picture of them at police academy in their various states. And that's
cool.
It's very cool. Making baby coppers, So, advice to new police officers, police candidates getting into the job. What would you have to tell them?
Well, there was a time not so long ago that I wouldn't have suggested they do it. And for obvious reasons. I think anybody who's been in law enforcement can see what's happened in the past, in recent history, with police. But the more I think about it, and the more I see what's going on, even in LAPD, and I talk to cops up here all the time, and cops, wherever I go, I gravitate towards cops. So, law enforcement needs more dedicated, qualified individuals to be a police officer. I would tell you, if you're in the service and you're coming out of the service, or you're out of the service, you don't know what to do, and if you had a good career in the military or whatever, and you're thinking about it, I would encourage you to give it a shot. Try looking to being a police officer. It's a great job. I bit the bullet for 30 plus years, lived in LA, Guess what, folks? I live in Montana now. And the only reason I can live in Montana and live the life I do is because I bit the bullet. I got a great career, finished a great career, have a decent pension. It's not the best pension in the world. There's a lot of other better ones out there, and I've got medical insurance, so I'm good. So it's a long-term decision that I made, and I would encourage people, before you apply, you need to do your homework. If you're thinking about applying for a specific place, find out about it.
Yeah.
If you can, do some ride-alongs. Do some ride-alongs in your local town, wherever you're at. Talk to a lot of police officers. Find out what the job's all about. If you have issues, if you have, problems, I wouldn't even consider it. And I'm trying to be generic about that, about issues and stuff like that. But if you're a squared away individual, positive individual, it's a great job. It's a great career, but don't let recent political things happen. You know, a good point, real quick. Friend of mine's retired deputy sheriff out of Utah. He carries a gun with him everywhere he goes off duty all the time. And he said something to me the other night. He gets heat from some people because he carries a gun with himself all the time. He said, when I go into Walmart, I got a gun on me. If I go to the gym, I got a gun on me. Because I don't want to be in there when some yahoo decides to come in the gym because his wife is having an affair with her trainer, and he comes walking in with a gun and he kills 2 people in front of me, and I can't stop it. He says, I carry a gun with me. I'm retired now, but I'm still a law enforcement officer. I'm still a police officer, and I want to protect people. So if you've got that kind of an attitude where you want to serve, you want to help people in your community, you want to do a good job, I would encourage anybody to do it. It's not for everybody. And if you can't do it and it doesn't work for you, don't feel bad about it. But it doesn't work for everybody, but I would encourage you to give it a shot.
All right. Words of wisdom. I love it. Thank you, Rick. I really appreciate you coming on the show, man.
Yep.
Killer stories. I feel like you probably have a bunch more in there too. So you might be a two-timer for the Things Police See podcast, perhaps. Hey,
I'd be glad to. I got lots of them.
If you, I was thinking if you ever started your own podcast, I have a name for you for the podcast. Deadman Tells No Lies.
Oh gosh.
Nailed it. Bam. Right there. That's it. I would click on that, you know?
I don't know if I want to work that. I don't know if I want to work that anymore. Work to me is a 4-letter word, dude.
I know. God bless you. Well, you earned it, brother. Like I said, honored to have you on, man. Thank you so much. We did an hour, which is a perfect length. Can you hang on just like 2 minutes
Sure.
when I do the outro to the show?
Sure. It was a pleasure. Thanks.
All right, brother. I'll be right back with you. Guys, a great Rick Deadman, great stories, great storyteller. What a career from LAPD, Wyoming, back to LAPD, now resting comfortably in Montana, helping other folks out. It's a good life. It's a good life. Guys, it's the time of the show when I thank the Patreon sponsors. If you support the show through Patreon and you pick Sergeant or above, you will get a shout out on the show. Who I'm talking about is a great and powerful Andy Biggs, the handsome Kyle Roberts, Michael Roach from Roach Bots, Roach Machines, check him out, AI Solutions, the handsome Elaine Campbell, the great Gary Steiner, Adam Mihal, everybody, Seth Wright, the great Lauren Stimson, Jason Lau, thank you, sir, Sasha McNabb, thank you, Sean Clifford, the great Tammy Walsh, holding it down to dispatch, thank you, Tammy, George Tessier, see you at church, brother, Dennis Carrasquillo, everybody, Scott Young, Dan Carlson from Burley Boards, check him out on Instagram, amazing woodworker, Doug and Kelly Newman, love you guys, hope you're enjoying Casper, Wyoming, Raymond Arsenal, Richard Tolles, keep on trucking, brother, Elliot Sykes, Brad Thompson, Nancy Hammond, Clark Lakoff, Adam McMahon, Sheriff Ronald Long, thank you, sir. Zachary Pleat, everybody, the great Jason Labrie. Lisa Gano, ladies and gentlemen. Sherry Fidge, thank you, madame. Gabriel Decknop, thank you. Eric Smith, my man. Jackson Dalton, Black Box Safety, check them out. The great Marcus Johansson, K9 Extraordinaire. Brett Lee, everybody, and the handsome Cale Oswald. Guys, thank you for the continued support to the show. I couldn't pay all the bills for it without you, and I truly, truly appreciate it. And yeah, that's it. I did not have a line to follow that up, guys. But I love you, and I will see you next week.